Wonder Woman was a movie that came out recently. Wonder Woman 1984.
Correct.
Not based on George Orwell or anything like that.
No, and it didn't come out in 1984 either.
No, absolutely not. A little
yeah.
confusing for aliens when they inevitably find our destroyed human race.
Yeah, they're not going to appreciate
all
that.
they find are things like The Dark Knight Rises and a certain online film based on The Dark Knight Rises.
Correct. An excellent spin-off.
That I'm not going to mention here.
No, yeah.
Hey, by the way, so here's the thing. Before we hop into this Wonder Woman discussion, which is going to be interesting, there is a lot that Wonder Woman's failure could mean for the DCEU. We have a lot of stuff going on.
Sure do.
We have a secondary channel, Degenerate Plays, where we play through a lot of games, have a really fun time. We hope you check that out. The link is in the description down below. That is podcast-style content where we talk about pretty much anything, including the game. And we have a lot of social media, Twitter, Instagram, Discord, Reddit. We hope you check that out and subscribe if you enjoy this. Now, here's the thing with Wonder Woman 1984. I think that we can just say, it doesn't matter what you think about the movie. And I don't mean that like your opinion doesn't matter, but what I mean is we're not talking about the quality of the film here. It has nothing to do with that. What we're going to talk about is just the box office of this film, the release to streaming platforms, and what this could mean for both the DCEU and movies going forward. Because it is kind of a big deal how much this thing struggled at the box office.
And I think it's important to note that COVID obviously played a pretty large factor in the expectations box office wise. I think if this comes out in say early, January 2020 or 2019 even, this movie probably still makes $750 million worldwide, maybe even $1 billion. Does pretty well box office, and they're able to move forward because of how good the first one was. But because this was able to just be streamed on HBO Max, and that's where I think the majority of people saw it, I think it made...
It was about 36 million domestic.
Okay, I was going to say less than 50 million domestically, yeah.
105 million or 106 million international, worldwide $141 million.
So that's not great, right? So that's and the thing is too, critically, DC has had a hard time releasing a consistent string of good movies, critically received wise.
Can I throw out, by the way, it was a $200 million budget, not including the marketing. From what I can see.
Yeah, that's not great.
So we're talking like you did not even make back your pre-marketing budget. You fell $60 million short of your budget, and that's not including marketing.
And DC's in a tough place because they've got that stuff going on with Ray Fisher right now, too, where he's no longer in The Flash. You've got Wonder Woman 84 that was not critically received all
Ray
that well.
Fisher even retired, basically. Did you see that? He straight up said, like, well, I'm not going to work with Walter Hamada then. I'm going to be done. And they're like, okay, bye. Yeah. They don't care. That situation's weird in and of itself. I didn't really even want to not talk about it, but make a video on that itself.
Of course. Yeah.
But I will say too, with that does strain relation with the public, like you said, and it does make things look weird. And you have now two sides. There's a side almost shilling for Warner Bros, like they can't do anything wrong, and there's a side like no, Ray Fisher is like a hero. He's calling out this abuse. I've seen no evidence at all that anything happened, and that's the problem I have with these things is show me what happened. Otherwise all it is you say it happened and that's it. And I'm not saying you're a liar, but it's I'm not there, so I need to see something. I haven't, so I don't even know what to think about that. And looking online, it seems like a lot of people fall under that, and Warner Brothers doesn't need that scrutiny right now either. I mean, they're suffering at the box office with Wonder Woman, like you said. I do also want to point out Patty Jenkins had straight up made comments about the whole going direct to streaming not being good, and so had Gal Gadot. And then they kind of walked it back, and it looked like they got paid a bonus to promote it after the fact. I don't know if you saw that.
No, I didn't.
But there was information coming out about them essentially getting a bonus to promote the movie after the fact, and this was after they had said negative things about it, and then all of a sudden they stopped saying negative things about it. And I'm not trying to call them liars or shills or whatever, but I do think that the public is seeing this stuff, and it's all not good, is what I'm getting at. It's like a big volcano of bad.
Yeah, well, and just for the direction of the DC, what they're doing with movies and stuff, is we already know that it's not anywhere as structured as Marvel is, and their success has not been really comparable in a lot of ways to what Marvel's been doing, especially with their MCU and everything that happened with the Justice League and all that build up, and with the Snyder Cut now. There's just a big mess of stuff that you're not sure what to expect as far as quality with DC. And this performance with Wonder Woman 84, this was supposed to be I think what a lot of people were expecting was another excellent film and just another building block for DC to continue growing. You had a phenomenal movie in Joker. Birds of Prey was fine, I guess, but like you've had some good movies in there, and it's just not consistent enough. And I think that's what's concerning. And especially as you look towards their future projects. I think a lot of people are really excited about the Robert Pattinson Batman movie.
Well, and The Flash, because you're going to have Ben Affleck back and supposedly Michael Keaton's Batman back.
Yeah.
So, like, that's kind of this multiverse direction, I think, is what's going to pull them out of the fire a little bit.
It is.
That's kind of where Joker started, was sort of like, hey, look, we get that a lot of you are having problems with our main universe, and there's a lot of, like, hardcore Worlds of DC, DCEU, whatever, fans, you know, we like it, but there's a lot of hardcore people who don't want to admit problems with it, or who just do know there's problems with it and love it still. And then there's also like the opposite, where it's like, I hate this, I hate everything about it. And I think they're trying to go a middle road to appeal to both. They're still trying to make things for those people who like it, but also make the Jokers and, you know, all this other stuff, the Batman, for other people. I think that's a good approach, but I don't think that is encouraged when you see something as big as Wonder Woman, which was so successful the first time around, come out and do so poorly. Especially because Patty Jenkins had mentioned that without box office money, studios are not going to have an incentive to make big budget films for very long. You can't afford the actors, their pay will have to go down. I don't feel too bad about that. I mean, like, you make what you earn. I've always felt that way. I don't care. But, like, it's hard to cry for, you know, a millionaire that they'll make a few less million. But the problem is that you won't have the budget for CGI, or you won't have the budget to get certain actors, or you won't have the budget to make the film go in certain directions, because the money's not there. It's just not there in streaming services. How many movies do you think I can justify a year that are on the budget of Wonder Woman under HBO Max? You know?
Well, and that's what's tough is you see a place like Netflix where they're pumping out a new movie, I think, every week in 2021, and they make pretty big, ginormous films. I don't know what HBO is going to be doing, but and they're really housing a lot of DC stuff. But I think that's what also, like you were saying earlier, not to backtrack too far, but their multiverse thing, I think, is what's going to help them a lot, but it's also hurting them, I think, in some capacity, too, because it's confusing to the public, and even to me, as a really big fan of everything they have going on. I have to look up their projects and figure out what's going on and what direction everything is going in. It's fine. I like that they're doing a bunch of different stuff, like Joker completely out of nowhere in its own separate thing, and then Birds of Prey still being in the DCEU, and then all of these other things. And there are some sequels that I'm pretty excited about. I think a Shazam 2 is going to be fun. I think that Flash film is going to be fun too. But
hopefully Joker.
Hopefully
I mean, that
yeah.
one's kind of hard because it was so open-ended.
Right.
I'm nervous, but whatever. Hopefully Joker.
But we'll see. But my concern is that there is structure, but there isn't structure. And when you have that kind of formula, if you're going to be so free reign about everything, I feel like the product needs to be consistently good to get people to invested in your product. Otherwise, if you don't have things building on one another, not that necessarily you need to have the MCU all the time, and that those solo projects can work by themselves. But I think if the solo projects aren't doing well, and they aren't attracting the public, and they aren't getting positive reviews, you're not going to get the turnout that you want or that you need to go move forward on future projects.
And you won't get it next time.
No.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing, too, is like, it might not even matter about this time. You and I were talking in the car earlier about The Last Jedi, and not even to get into the quality of that, but that film directly impacted films after it.
Solo specifically.
Solo really suffered, and so then you saw no really more Star Wars story movies, at least for now. They kind of said like, and a lot of these companies don't take that as, oh, you don't like the thing, like you didn't like the thing before, so you're not seeing this. They just see it as, oh, you didn't see this, so this must not be good. That's how these how these entertainment industry people interpret it. It's like, you didn't see Solo, not because you didn't like The Last Jedi, although that's why a lot of people didn't see it. It's because you don't like Solo, so we won't make that anymore. That's how they see this. So it's like, if you release Birds of Prey, and let's say just hypothetically everyone hated it and it did really bad, well, maybe that hurts the next thing, even if that's good. That's the problem I have with their quality stuff and the lack of reception to it all around. Not everything has to be universally loved.
No.
But I think you should have generally favorable opinions about your product, both critically and from the fans. Even if we were talking like 65-35 or like 70-30, you know, like, hey, 70% or 80% of people who saw this and critics liked it, I'm not saying you have to be 100%. you're never going to make everyone happy. But it seems weird how badly they've done with consistently producing things in a row that are seen as good, no matter what you think of it. You can be the biggest hardcore BVS fan of all time. You can think Man of Steel is the best superhero movie ever. You can think Birds of Prey is the best film of all time, but you can't deny that public opinion has been rough.
Yeah, and those are 3 examples of fun movies that I think that we both enjoyed, but they're not like critically acclaimed,
Man of Steel, I think, did the best out of them.
That's true. Man of Steel,
and I do really like that movie a lot. But
Man of Steel is probably one of the best ones in the entire DCEU, actually, now that I think about it. But
I thought so. People don't like Superman,
Sure.
But
Yeah.
other than that, yeah, I mean, the thing is, though, that I think we're getting at, there's a lot of hurdles with this whole universe.
There is, yeah, and obviously COVID and with the global pandemic, it makes things a lot more difficult at the box office, and the numbers are significantly impacted by that. Nonetheless, if this movie performed well critically and got a lot of positive reviews and was still gaining hype and maintaining hype for the Wonder Woman brand, I think that would have been what DC needed.
Well, and physical sales are through the roof too, because that could have helped them.
Yep.
If they had that.
Yep.
Like maybe that replaces a lot of tickets. People bought the movie because they're stuck indoors, but they don't have that because of the reception.
Right.
So you can't make that up.
Yeah, it makes it a lot more difficult, and I think that they have a lot of exciting projects on the horizon. I'm not saying by any means that they're doomed, but they need to find some level of consistency to keep people coming back to watching their films. And I think they're still, and we've been talking about this for years, ever since BVS and Justice League.
Yeah, that's when we started BVS. We did a BVS review. We were actually generally positive of it.
We were, yeah. And I think that we've been talking about their need for consistency ever since. And they've put out some awesome movies, and they've put out some ones that are just not that great too. So I think they just need to find some form of consistency, even if it's in a multiverse where things really aren't consistent story-wise. Just product quality needs to be there.
Yeah. And we're going to end this here in a second, but I did want to say to you and ask Kenny your opinion on this. We talked about the future of the DCEU. I talked about this a little bit with Alex from Podcast Now a while ago with movie theaters and stuff, but personally, I think even a bigger issue than the DC movies themselves is just movies. I really do think that it's a concern that we will hit this point where it's not worth it budget-wise to make certain things. And there's pros and cons to that. I mean, maybe less things that are bloated and bad, but bloated for the sake of being a popcorn flick will be made, and maybe that's good. Maybe that'll lead to higher quality, smaller things, sure. But there will be movies that just couldn't be made on that budget, like Endgame. You couldn't make that on just a streaming service. I'm sorry. You can say, well, WandaVision, dude, that is going to be infinitely, less, expensive than all this other stuff. I mean, yeah, there's effects, but it's different, It's different on the big screen, and I think that this is going to be a problem for movies going forward, where there might not be as much of a justification to take a chance on a big budget thing because the money return is not there.
Well, yeah, I think it's bad for the movie industry, just the pandemic. Obviously, the pandemic's bad for a lot of reasons, but it's bad for the movie industry because you're having a lot of people. And I was just talking about this with my boss at work, actually. She's like, well, why would I go to the movie theater when I can buy... She bought The Croods for her family, and they watched that. It was $20. They watched it 4 times in the 72 hours that they had. They made dinner. They could pause it whenever they wanted. They could put subtitles on. And she's like, I don't really feel the need to go to the movie theater. When I have a family of 4, I'd spend $100 to do that if we did the popcorn snacks and everything. To see it one time. So this is, I think, opening eyes, unfortunately, for the general public. It's like, well, I can just enjoy this in the comfort of my own home. I can buy a projector. I can have surround sound. I can really have a movie theater feel in my own home. Why would I leave? And so that's, I think, going to negatively affect that budget that you were talking about, and definitely make it harder to make those films. And it's going to be hard to see, and I guess, or hard to predict that there's going to be a movie to the scale of Endgame in the near future, budget-wise. I think that movie cost like $400 million to make or something.
It was more than that.
That's going to be hard to justify when Wonder Woman 84 got $140 million worldwide. Mm-hmm. And that was a movie that you could easily see in 2019 probably pulling in $1 billion. So that's a tough thing to overcome in the next couple of years, I think.
And I don't think we feel that bad, just to cap it off, I don't think we feel that bad for Hollywood as Hollywood. I mean, there's tons of people there though. Like the thing is, we see a lot of dumb stuff from a lot of dumb people in Hollywood, but there's thousands of people who work there in CGI, you know, in effects, in set design, in art, in all this stuff that you don't see, and they're the ones who will get laid off.
Correct.
They're the ones who will suffer. And it's not even the big Tom Cruises or, you know, any of these guys, like, not to throw him under the bus, it's just first name that came to mind, who will suffer as much because they're set, you know. It's the smaller people, unfortunately, that I think will take the hit on this. And then the consumer, because they just won't have as much entertainment if it's not worth it to produce. At the end of the day, I think some people, they get upset. It's like, why are you shilling for Hollywood? No, I don't feel very bad for Hollywood at all. I feel bad for the small people who work there, the people who are doing their best, you know, the actors who are doing a job and not being a dick, and the consumers who just want to escape, you know, who want to watch Endgame and get away from how shitty the real world is sometimes. And that the money might not be there to do that in the future. That's the problem I have with all this. It goes to DC, it goes to movie making in general, and it's frustrating to watch sort of the neglect of this portion of the entertainment industry and people not realizing what it will mean, that maybe I could, you know, release Birds of Prey and rent it to you for $20 instead of 10. You know, all this stuff. It's like, I'm just going to upcharge you myself instead of the theater now. I just cut out the middleman. I can charge whatever I want. There's no competition. If you want to watch my movie, you pay it. If you don't, there's not competition for my movie, really. There's other movies, but they're not mine. So it's like, well, I guess you just don't get to see Birds of Prey.
Well, look at Mulan.
That's it.
Mulan, they charge $30 on Disney Plus to go see
immediately.
Or you could wait till December 7th and watch it just as a part of your membership. But like, that's an example. You can charge whatever you want. $30 for Mulan. Yeah.
And we know that these telecom companies and these entertainment companies, no one specifically, but I'm saying there have been tons of reports of like racketeering type stuff, where it's like, hey, I own Mulan, you own Star Trek. Let's not both charge over $20. Okay, they're not supposed to do that, but these companies talk all the time and do stuff like that, which is bad for the consumer. And then it goes back to like, what is the future of these movies? I feel like we could go into this for a long time, but we probably should cut it there.
For sure. Yeah.
I'm interested to see what people think in the comments down below. What are your thoughts on the future of the DCEU? What are your thoughts on the future of movie making? And what do you think in general? Let us know. We're interested. Be sure to check out the social media. It's all down there. Twitter, Instagram, Discord. It's all there. And the secondary channel. We appreciate you very much. I can't speak. Have a good day, and we'll see you in the next one. And as always, stay shway.